Fired in tears. Discover the incredible moment a billionaire offers a transformative opportunity? Anna sat in her car, staring blankly at the peeling paint of the hospital entrance, her breaths coming in shallow gasps. Just a few short hours ago, she had poured her heart into the very ward that now felt like a prison. Being a nurse wasn't just her profession, it was her entire life. Now, as she clutched the fabric of her worn uniform, the weight of inadequacy crushed her spirit. 8 years of night shifts, missed holidays, and care for others had culminated in this, her dismissal for something arbitrary that felt like a betrayal by the very place she had given everything to. How would she tell her kids? The thought intensified her nausea, twisting her insides with panic. Lisa's ballet classes, Kyle's soccer gear, all those staples of their lives hung in the balance, teetering on the edge of what? Her soul ached with desperation and fear. What did she have to show for years of self-sacrifice? Each moment of doubt coiled tighter around her mind. Why hadn't she prepared for this? Why hadn't she secured a backup plan? As the meeting stirred in the town hall, nearby murmurs blended into a dull roar in her ears. Anna never wanted to attend these sessions, her only intention to slip in unnoticed. Yet she found herself drawn to the whispers surrounding Jake Fox, the reclusive billionaire who had mysteriously returned to their small town. He stood at the front, tall and imposing, yet somehow vulnerable. His eyes scanned the room, meeting hers, an electric jolt that left her startled. What was that? Confusion mingled with an inexplicable desire to hear him speak. Though he had money, he transformed before her into something more, a glimpse of possibility. Wasn't he what she had always resented? Before she could make sense of her thoughts, he suggested an initiative aimed at providing healthcare access for low-income families. His voice was calm, but held an urgent undertone, pitching a cause that ignited a flicker of hope within her. The words burrowed deeply, awakening buried dreams. Yet they were tethered to a stark reality. She felt the walls of her conscience tightening, her upbringing echoing back her suspicion of the wealthy, a long-held disdain that clawed at her chest. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Tension crackled in the room. The local elites sniffed at Jake's proposal as if it were a foul odor, intent on protecting their privileged status. Anna's palms grew clammy. Could she really trust him? Those in power were predictable, self-serving, dismissive. This tangibly present struggle presented more than a choice. It was a labyrinth of emotions. Friends turned to foes. Knots of uncertainty twisted tighter as the town's pulse quickened with uncertainty. That night, buried in a box of old memories, Anna discovered a journal belonging to her great-uncle. His writings overflowed with passion for community welfare, mirroring the very ideals Jake presented. Each story was a beacon, illuminating the essence of her own yearning, heightening her resolve. Yet shadows of doubt emerged, flaring alarmingly. Could she risk everything she held dear, tearing apart the facade of normality? Standing before a community that felt simultaneously foreign and familiar, everything boiled down to that critical moment. Could she confront the elite dissenting voices, risking retaliation? Or should she retreat into the comforting shadows of anonymity? As the tension in her chest throbbed, Anna inhaled deeply, the anticipation weighing heavily. Would she battle? Would she cave? With eyes fixed on Jake, the weight of every choice loomed like a specter over her decision. Her heart raced as she prepared to speak, the air thick with uncertainty. and Anna realized that the path to change, perhaps even peace, lay dangerously close, yet utterly out of reach. Anxiety gnawed at Anna as she stood in front of the gathering, the pungent odor of perspiration and tension filling the air. The murmurs only added to her unease, each word a reminder of her precarious situation. Jake's proposition reflected not just an opportunity for the community, but a lifeline for her. Yet, did that bond come with strings? With a sudden burst of courage, she stood taller. She glanced again at Jake, who was now scanning the audience with a hopeful gaze. Perhaps he could be an ally. Or perhaps he was simply another player in an elaborate game of power. But maybe it was time to rewrite the rules. "Excuse me," Anna's voice crackled through the silence, surprising even herself. Heads turned, some with incredulity, others with curiosity. The eyes of the other attendees brightened, revealing a mixture of disdain, surprise, and perhaps even a flicker of hope. Did they see her, the woman who had spent years caring for the sick, as a mere interloper now? "I have been a nurse for 8 years," she continued, her pulse quickening. "I was dedicated to the very system that's now cast me aside without a thought. But let me tell you, access to healthcare isn't just a proposal, it's a necessity." The words poured out of her, fueled by a fire she hadn't felt in years. The local elites scoffed, dismissing her passion with sly glances. Their murmurs morphed into hushed conversations, further fueling her resolve. How can we lecture the community about health when they can barely afford care? What does it say about us? As she spoke, her indignation transformed into a clarion call, an awakening that echoed in the very marrow of her bones. Jake stepped forward, encouraging her with an approving nod. That simple gesture of support galvanized her to press on. "My great-uncle believed in community healing. He taught me that true progress comes from lifting each other, not tearing each other down. We need to prioritize wellness over wealth. We need to create an impact that extends beyond our fears of change." The murmurs shifted, morphing from derision to a contemplative rustle. Could it be that her words sparked something within them? She watched the faces change, some softened, while others hardened. But for Anna, it was enough just to voice her beliefs, to reclaim the power robbed from her. No longer just a casualty of the system, she began to visualize her place within it. As the discussion progressed, Anna found a strange exhilaration in the confrontation. She felt clearer. Her goal was not to convince the elite, but to inspire others who had once remained silent. With newfound determination, she focused on crafting a plan. She wouldn't just align herself with Jake, she would become a force for change in her own right. After the meeting, seeing the genuine interest from several attendees who lingered, she realized that she wasn't alone in her ambitions. However, her jubilation was tempered by the looming specter of backlash. As she exchanged contacts, a gnawing question formed in her mind. How would she shield herself and her family from the inevitable scrutiny? What paths would she have to navigate? Determined yet wary, Anna stepped away from the crowd, her thoughts racing. The taste of empowerment mingled with the bitter tang of fear, and she understood that stepping fully into this new role would require more than courage. It would demand sacrifice. Could she balance this newfound purpose with her responsibilities as a mother? The stakes were higher than before. Every decision held weight, and her resolve would be tested. With each step toward the exit, a nagging uncertainty followed. What alliances would she have to foster? What battles would she face? And could her efforts really lead to the kind of change she envisioned? As she buckled into her car, anticipation swelled within her. The moment of truth was approaching. Would she be ready to face the consequences of her choices? On the horizon, shrouded in uncertainty, the real challenge awaited. Now, Anna understood. The time had come to face her fears and forge a path into the unknown. The moment Anna started her car, the engine roared to life, echoing her heart racing with newfound purpose. Yet, it was a bitter symphony. She grasped the steering wheel tightly, willing herself to focus, but the looming specter of uncertainty loomed over her like an unshakable cloud. Her life was poised on the edge of a knife, every decision a step toward defining who she was becoming. As she navigated the streets, her mind replayed Jake's approving nod, a gesture that may have seemed innocuous to others, but meant everything to her. It's refreshing, Anna thought, to find validation from someone perceived as powerful. Just moments ago, she stood before a room full of doubters, and now she sought clarity to transform that momentum into something tangible. However, as a nurse, she had spent years in a system that valued compliance over courage. The road ahead tangled with the fear of stepping out of that mold. Her heart clenched at the thought of backlash, not just from peers, but potentially from clients and even her own family. How could she juggle advocating for a community she belonged to while not jeopardizing the welfare of those she loved most? She recalled the faces of the people in that meeting, some willing to listen, others already drafting their rebuttals. How had she managed to spark even a flicker of willingness among them? A small victory could spiral into a full-scale movement. The thought excited her, but with it came dread. What if they turned against her? The pressure to conform to their expectations crowded her mind, each version of failure echoing louder than the last. Arriving home, Anna hesitated at the door. She felt the weight of trepidation in her chest, while knowing that stepping forward might require shedding the skin of her old self. What would it mean to advocate for change? She resolved that she needed to prepare for the inevitable consequences, strategies for how to handle misinformation, how to garner support, and most importantly, how to secure her family's safety while risking so much for others. That night, Anna spread a large sheet of paper across the kitchen table. Her hand shook at first as she wrote down her goals, each bold letter a counter to her growing anxiety. Research local health disparities, identify allies from the event, reach out to Jake. Each bullet point grounded her, morphing abstract ambitions into actionable items. This was her moment, and she needed to strategize. When her young son Timmy wandered into the kitchen with his curious eyes, Anna felt the pang of maternal instinct gnaw at her resolve. How would she explain her new path to him? "Mama's going to change the world," she envisioned herself saying, but would he understand that change came with risks? She could already picture his innocent confusion as a reflection of her own uncertainty. "Mommy, are you okay?" Timmy asked, tugging at the hem of her sweater. The softness of his voice jarred her back to reality. How could she embark on this journey when it might endanger their stability? She forced a smile, crouching down to meet his gaze. "I'm getting everything ready for a new adventure," she said, her voice firm yet gentle. Anna's gaze flickered to the wall, to a photo of her family hiking, proof of their past adventures together. Perhaps this wouldn't be an adventure of the conventional sort, but it could be a moment of growth, a lesson in resilience. She steadied herself. Transforming fear into a strategic advantage could become her strongest asset. With an iron will, she turned back to the paper. Each stroke of her pen firmed her grasp on her vision. This was more than a personal journey. It was about galvanizing the determination of everyone, herself included. What could she tap into to ensure that her voice wouldn't be lost in the noise? As the sun began to dip outside, painting the sky shades of dusk, her resolve solidified. She felt the anticipation rise within her, a blend of trepidation and excitement electrifying the air around her. Tomorrow would bring a fresh start, filled with possibilities, but she knew very well that it would come with fresh challenges. The stakes were raised significantly. How could she ensure that stepping into this new role wouldn't cost her everything? Tomorrow, she would need to confront not only her fears, but also those who doubted her. The real question loomed over her. Could she withstand the pressure? And would her newfound allies stand by her side when the shadows threatened to engulf her? Anna closed her eyes momentarily, breathing in deeply, allowing determination to fuel her next steps. She realized that the moment of reckoning was about to unfold, and in that realization, a glimmer of hope ignited within her. Would she be able to stand firm against the storm? The morning light streamed through the kitchen window, illuminating the papers spread across the table like a roadmap to her ambitions. Anna stared at her goals, her heart pounding with both excitement and trepidation. Today was the day she aimed to step into her power, to challenge the narrative that had been written for her. She glanced at Timmy, still wrapped in a cocoon of sleepiness, his innocence a stark contrast to the turmoil swirling in her mind. "I just need to get through today," she whispered to herself, resolving to tackle the doubts and fears head-on. As the commotion of getting ready for work began, she focused on her breathing, each inhale filling her with resolve, every exhale a release of the self-doubt creeping in. She slipped into her scrubs, a uniform she had worn countless times, but today she imagined it as armor, protective and empowering. Driving to work, she rehearsed her strategy mentally, refreshing herself on the facts she had gathered about local health disparities. She couldn't afford to let emotions overshadow the urgency of her mission. Anna's hands tightened once more around the steering wheel as she envisioned her colleagues, their skepticism waiting to be challenged. Stepping into the hospital, she felt the familiar blend of sterile smells and hurried footsteps, but today it felt different, charged with a palpable energy. She strode through the hallways, greeting coworkers, her mind flickering with the faces of those at the meeting. What if they dismissed her ideas again? No, she couldn't allow that to happen. In the staff lounge, Anna saw Jake surrounded by a small bench of colleagues, laughing loudly. A yearning for that sort of camaraderie tugged at her. Yet beneath, would he still support her if she championed change they might not agree with? Mental alignment matters, she thought, reminding herself of her own journey toward authenticity. Taking a moment, she breathed deeply, steadying her resolve. The daily routine unfurled around her, conversations about patients, updates on treatments. For a heartbeat, she almost let the current sweep her away. But then, the weight of her mission crashed against her like a tidal wave. She needed to be heard. Anna approached the group, her heart racing. "Can we talk about some of the disparities I mentioned the other day?" she began, her voice slightly trembling but growing steadier with every word. "I believe there are systemic issues within our care that we need to address." Their laughter faltered, replaced by confused expressions. "What do you mean, Anna?" One nurse crossed her arms, eyebrows raised in skepticism. "Why stir the pot?" "I'm not trying to stir the pot. I'm trying to support the patients who depend on us," she replied, conviction pouring into her words. "We can be advocates for change. We owe it to them to address these disparities." Silence enveloped the room as Anna delivered her points with a clarity she didn't know she had, outlining the facts she had prepared. She gestured in emphatic bursts, watching as Jake shifted slightly, his expression inscrutable. "There are patients who might not get the care they need due to biases we might not even be aware of," Anna pressed on, desperation creeping into her tone. "We need to question and confront these disparities. Change isn't easy, but it starts with us." She met Jake's gaze, searching for some glimmer of support or recognition. Anna's colleagues started murmuring amongst themselves. Doubt mingled with the hum of new ideas, as she realized she was poking at something deeply buried. Her chest tightened at the thought of backlash. Would they really engage or dismiss her? Just as it seemed the discussion might gain traction, another voice interjected, a familiar face from the meeting, one that had bristled at her presence. "You think you're going to change everything just by bringing this up? You know the system won't let you." Anna felt the color drain from her face as the weight of his words emptied the air. Was she that naive? Could she truly stand against a machine? She swallowed hard, knowing failure could mean losing more than credibility. The stakes were spiraling. Would any of them support her, or was she destined to stand alone against a tide of indifference? The question lay heavy in the atmosphere, a black cloud looming over her efforts as she prepared to face the almost unbearable pressure ahead. Tomorrow promised more challenges, and yet she felt she needed to confront her shifting internal compass. Anna wondered, would resilience be enough to push through the fear and doubt suffocating her? A decision loomed closer than clarity, one that could ignite either her resolve or extinguish her. Anna stood there, poised like a tightrope walker, teetering between success and failure. The weight of her colleagues' disbelief settled into her shoulders, an anchor threatening to pull her under. She had stepped into this arena armed with knowledge and determination, but now her heart raced with an overwhelming urge to retreat, to find safety in silence. But then she noticed the subtle shifts around the room, an exchange of doubtful glances, a murmur of tentative agreement breaking the surface of skepticism. There was something deeper at play. Maybe her voice had ignited a spark of doubt in their minds about the status quo. "Anna," Jake finally said, his tone softer than before, "you're saying we're ignoring these issues intentionally?" She seized the opening like a life buoy in choppy seas. "Not at all," she replied, steadying her voice. "But we might be turning a blind eye to systemic biases that influence our care. If we genuinely want to improve patient outcomes, we owe it to ourselves and our patients to examine these flaws." A flicker of tension flared across her colleagues' faces, shifting from dismissal to contemplation. Anna furrowed her brow, sensing a turning point. Maybe this moment could break the mold she had been trapped in for so long. Yet the shadows of uncertainty continued to encroach on her resolve. "What about tradition?" the skeptical nurse from earlier countered. "We've done things a certain way for so long. Changing the system takes time, and some may be resistant." "Tradition shouldn't be an excuse to ignore harm," Anna replied, her passion eclipsing her fear momentarily. "What's more important, our comfort or the lives of those we serve? We need to question these traditions, innovate, and do better." Around the room, a gradual hum of agreement began to build, but the sharp voice of dissent still clawed at her confidence. The push and pull of professional risk weighed heavily. She was challenging not just norms, but people's identities within the organization. Vulnerability seeped into her veins as she started to feel the loneliness of her mission. Could she face this alone? Jake's expression shifted again, leaning slightly forward. "If we confront our biases, then what do we do with that information? It's easy to spot problems, but solutions, they're harder." That's what this was about, wasn't it? Identifying problems, but then quietly withdrawing from the challenge of devising change. The fear of stepping into the unknown paralyzed many. How could she guide them through this fog, lead them to a place of acceptance and action? "I don't have all the answers," she admitted, a tremor of honesty threading through her tone. "But if we want to be better caregivers, we have to confront those issues head-on, together. We can start small, maybe change our training programs, integrate discussions about biases that affect care. It's a first step." As she spoke, Anna felt an unexpected warmth swell within her. Was this the first step toward authenticity? She had entered this arena terrified of rejection, yet she was growing more aware of her strength with every word. "Let's organize a roundtable to discuss this further," Jake suggested, glancing around the room as others nodded slowly. "That's a start," Anna murmured, unable to hide her relief. But in the quiet corners of her mind, doubt whispered. Would genuine change follow, or would they fall back into complacency, as had happened before? As the meeting adjourned and Anna walked away, the adrenaline of hope collided with anxiety. Could she navigate the complexities of their evolving attitudes while ensuring they held themselves accountable for their beliefs? Could she keep that spark of change alive amidst the looming shadows? Questions flooded her thoughts, that felt like the entire weight of her ambitions. Yet, there was one other nagging contemplation that threatened to surface: the unsettling idea of her past hesitation and the way it had molded her choices up to this point. But before she could dive deeper, her phone buzzed, jolting her from her introspection. The fleeting moment of connection faded into anticipation. Who was reaching out now? What if it was the message that could shift everything? A new opportunity, perhaps, or an unexpected challenge? Anna paused, the space around her growing heavy with potential. Whatever lay ahead, she sensed it required an even deeper dive into her newfound purpose. The stakes had risen, and with them, the conviction to embrace whatever came next. The vibration of her phone surged through Anna's thoughts, a jolt that sent a mix of anxiety and curiosity coursing through her. She glanced at the screen and found a message from an unknown number. With a deep breath, she opened it, unsure of what to expect. "Hi, Anna. This is Jonathan Blake from Blake Enterprises. I've been following your recent discussions on systemic bias. I believe there's potential for collaboration that could change how we perceive caregiving. Let's meet." The words leaped off the screen, tangling with her apprehension and ambition. Jonathan Blake was a name well known, a billionaire involved in multiple philanthropic projects that intersected with healthcare. But could he truly be interested in her ideas? Anxiety fluttered in her chest as the idea of stepping into a world where she would collaborate with someone like him felt both exhilarating and terrifying. As she scribbled a quick note to confirm a meeting, doubt nagged at her. What could she realistically offer someone as renowned as Blake? He must have countless professionals at his disposal, all with more experience, more credentials. Yet, for the first time in weeks, she felt a spark of optimism. If his vision aligned with hers, perhaps this meeting could accelerate the changes she so desperately wanted to see in her own workplace. The days leading up to the meeting were a haze of preparation and self-reflection. Anna began to confront the meticulous walls she had built around her aspirations. Was her voice truly enough? If she framed her ideas in terms he might understand, could she break through the comfort of her past positions of relative obscurity? Each evening, she would passionately articulate her thoughts in front of her mirror, bolstering her confidence with every rehearsal. She pictured different responses, imagined challenges, even drafted plans on how to make her discussions impactful. Yet with each passing day, her resolve felt intertwined with a growing fear, the fear of not measuring up to his expectations, that she could crumble under the weight of his success. On the day of the meeting, she dressed meticulously, donning an outfit that blended professionalism with a touch of authenticity. She needed to balance authority with relatability, presenting both her ambition and the vulnerable yet determined woman she had become. Arriving at Blake Enterprises, Anna was assaulted by the imposing architecture, each glass and steel surface reflecting her internal whirlwind. With every step towards the entrance, she confronted her anxiety, determined not to become a shadow of the person she had been under the scrutiny of her colleagues. This was a chance for evolution. Jonathan greeted her with a firm handshake and an amiable smile. As he led her into a sleek conference room, she felt the clinical cleanliness of the environment echo her internal state, an unseasoned blend of polished intent and raw fear. "Anna, it's clear you have a unique perspective on healthcare," he began, perching on the edge of the table, radiating an air of easy authority that belied the urgency of his profession. "What sparked your interest in this topic?" As she launched into her explanation, Anna discovered a rhythm she hadn't anticipated. With each detail about systemic biases and their impact on patient care, she felt a growing connection to her own convictions. Jonathan leaned intently forward, his gaze unwavering as he absorbed every word. She was not merely speaking, she was investing her essence into advocating for a cause that was undeniably larger than her. But as she set forth ambitious ideas about the need for training around biases, a shadow settled in. What if this was the moment of truth where she would challenge the very norms that both empowered and constrained her, testing her determination against the lofty expectations hovering over their exchange? How could she maintain her identity amidst someone so much larger than her world? Tell me, Anna, what do you envision as the first actionable step for us to take? He asked, an intensity in his voice that sharpened her focus. There it was, the fork in her path. This was the instant that could define her entire journey forward, and the shadow of self-doubt lingered threateningly. "We start by opening up dialogues," she replied, a tremor of uncertainty barely masked under the weight of her ambition. "We confront the narratives we've accepted and redefine them for a future where biases don't dictate patient outcomes." Jonathan nodded sagely, his eyes gleaming with intrigue. "Well, I have a proposition I believe you might find interesting. But first, I want to see if you're truly ready to navigate the tumult of real-world change." A chill crept down her spine. Whatever he proposed would push her further into the depths of her current mission, and she could feel the stakes rising rapidly. What would she discover in the face of an opportunity that could reshape her destiny? Would she rise to the occasion or falter in front of a titan of industry? As they leaned closer, her heart drummed steadily in her chest, urging her to grasp every possibility she could envision. Anna opened her mouth to reframe her vision, but the words caught at the back of her throat. This was more than the professional life she had imagined. This was a formidable challenge, and the answer lingered just out of reach. The moment hung in the air, thick with unspoken potential, as she prepared to step into a new arena where she would have to confront not just systemic biases, but also her deepest doubts. What was he about to offer? A challenge or a lifeline? The silence stretched between them, punctuated only by the distant hum of the bustling office around them. Jonathan's gaze remained steady, inviting but pressuring, as if he expected her to pull clarity from the swirling chaos of her thoughts. Anna felt the weight of his scrutiny, a reminder of what was at stake in this defining moment. It was not merely a meeting, but a chance to step into a new narrative of her life. "Anna," he started, breaking the tension that threatened to siphon all her composure, "are you willing to challenge the status quo? Because that is what is required." The intensity of his question anchored her, rooting her in the present. It was both an invitation and a test. "I am," she asserted, resolutely pushing the creeping doubt deep within her consciousness. "I want to effect change, not just discuss it. We've been too complacent for too long." The assertion flowed out of her, and as the words landed between them, a quiet confidence began to surface. She dared to contemplate the weight of her own convictions, letting them cascade into the space around them. A subtle smile appeared on Jonathan's face, welcoming yet enigmatic. "Good," he replied, standing upright. "Then let's explore what a partnership could look like. I'm seeking innovative minds who can push beyond traditional boundaries, and I believe you might just fit that description." His words spun within her like a dizzying dance. There was recognition, a reassurance that her ideals weren't just valid in the solitude of her thoughts, but they could also resonate in the corridors of power. As he laid out his proposal, outlining a project designed to tackle ingrained biases in healthcare delivery systems, she swung between exhilaration and unease. "However," he continued, shifting toward a more serious tone, "this initiative needs more than theoretical discussions. It requires actionable, difficult steps that may shake some foundations in the industry." Her stomach knotted at the thought. She had spent years navigating the safe waters of academia and her previous roles. "What kind of steps?" she dared to ask, her voice steadier than she felt. "First, I'd need you to lead a preliminary focus group with healthcare professionals and patients. You would facilitate discussions that lay bare uncomfortable truths. That's where you begin to incite real change." Each phrase dripped with challenge. A call to confront not just the biases echoed in sterile boardrooms, but also those lurking within herself. In this moment, Anna recognized the very core of her fear, illuminating the darkness of her personal inadequacies as a facilitator and a leader. Could she navigate these revelations unscathed? Facilitating such discussions means addressing the very biases I want to dismantle, she replied, her heart racing. What happens if I falter? Jonathan leaned forward again. Then you learn, Anna. Growth comes from confronting obstacles. I believe in what you stand for. I also want you to realize how formidable your insights are, if you let them be. Her walls, built by doubt and self-preservation, began to tremble. As Jonathan spoke, a flicker of clarity illuminated her path. This was no longer merely about success in a professional sense. It was about the authenticity of her journey, one that demanded vulnerability. "Will you take the plunge?" he asked, his voice a steady anchor against her whirlwind of anxiety. She paused, feeling the tide of panic rise within her while simultaneously feeling an indescribable truth stirring inside. "Yes, I'll lead the focus group," Anna declared, her voice trailing a tone of newfound conviction. "But I will need support, training, guidance." "Absolutely," he assured her, his demeanor a blend of partnership and mentorship. "We'll ensure you're equipped, but remember to embrace the learning process. It will challenge you in ways you may not expect." As the discussion concluded, the weight of what lay ahead began to settle into her bones, an exhilarating anticipation intermingling with the trembling undertow of fear. They agreed on a timeline, set for a month ahead, but Anna was already grappling with the reality that the time for preparation would be an unyielding test of her resolve. The meeting ended with a polite handshake, yet Anna felt something ignite within her that was far removed from mere professionalism. She was about to embark on an evolution that would expose her vulnerabilities while amplifying her voice. As she stepped back into the flow of the office crowd, her heart raced with excitement and trepidation. Would she be able to gather her strength to shatter the confines of her previous self? What awaited her as she began this necessary dive? Would it carve a path to her empowerment or reveal her shortcomings? The question loomed heavy in the air as Anna walked into an uncertain future, already aware that the clock was ticking on her transformative journey into the depths of systemic change. Would she rise to meet the challenge, or would she slip back into the shadows, confronting herself as the ultimate antagonist? This new chapter began with the days after that pivotal meeting, each one blending into the next, marked by the heavy ticking of a clock that seemed to mock her looming deadlines. As Anna sat at her desk, surrounded by reports that once soothed her anxious mind, she now felt strangled by their familiarity. Her focus was torn. Half of her was buried in strategic planning, while the other half hovered at the edge of a precipice, facing the daunting task ahead. She scribbled notes for the focus group facilitation. Ideas rushed out with quick strokes, yet felt weak under her own scrutiny. The goal was to illuminate biases within healthcare, but how could she unravel something so embedded in the lives of the very people she wished to help? The words that would flow out in her sessions needed not just to be articulate, but powerful enough to resonate with those seated before her. A thought flickered, creeping through her mind, a quiet echo of doubt. What could she possibly say that would drive home this critical message? The dread of disconnection clawed at her, threatening to stall her burgeoning confidence. Yet, amidst the shadows of insecurity, a determination sparked inside her, ignited by Jonathan's belief in her potential. By focusing her efforts, Anna settled on a straightforward approach she wished to employ in her discussions. Ground rules, she decided, would be paramount. Creating a safe space could encourage openness, coaxing out truths that lay dormant. She revisited her training in facilitation techniques, committing to memory skills honed from years in academia, yet yearning to expand her toolbox, methods that provoked reflection without defensiveness. The following weeks changed the landscape of Anna's routine. Mornings transformed into hours of research and preparation, dictated by an urgency she had never felt before. Evenings were filled with rehearsing dialogues and anticipating the possible responses from participants, savvy healthcare professionals who might question her authority as a facilitator. The thought of sitting across from seasoned practitioners ignited lines of anxiety across her forehead. What made her qualified to lead discussions in that setting? Each passing day weighed heavily as the focus group date approached. She turned to journals stacked on her bookshelf, searching for answers, only to find pieces of her life reflecting back at her. Each major move, each success, cluttered with formidability. It was frustrating, yet illuminating, as she began to grasp that she too had risen from her own biases and misconceptions throughout her career. That realization became a thread of strength, stitching her resolve together. Anna sought to share her journey as she led others in unpacking theirs. The notion was empowering. The possibility of connection was rewarding. By the time the focus group materialized on her calendar, the thrill of inevitability drowned the anxiety that had once paralyzed her. She arrived at the meeting space with sharpened clarity and a heart beating with purpose. But the moment she crossed the threshold of the room, gripping her notebook nervously, the doubts surged back. An onslaught of what-ifs flooded her thoughts. What if they rejected her? What if her vulnerability was met with dismissal? In the depths of her panic, she recalled Jonathan's words. True growth arose from the darkness. Anna inhaled deeply, dismissing that whisper of defeat, resolving to focus on the weight of the messages she aimed to convey, rather than allowing insecurities to ensconce her initiative. The participants began to file in, exchanging cordial greetings. She set her eyes on their faces, searching for signs of collaboration rather than confrontation. Each interaction, each smile exchanged, tightened the bond of trust she yearned to forge. As they gathered around the table, their expectations shouldered a mix of curiosity and skepticism. The atmosphere thickened. Each pair of eyes watched her intently, and Anna realized it was now or never. She took a breath, her lips parting to speak as the time for hesitation evaporated. A flicker of self-discovery sparked within her. She was no longer only the observer, but the architect of possibility. Would she construct a chamber of profound revelation, or would she find herself tangled amid the biases they all bore? The clock was running. The moment of truth was at hand, and Anna was about to either rise triumphant or confront the harsh reality of her limitations. As Anna began to speak, her voice trembled only slightly, the first ripple of vulnerability cutting through the air in the conference room. She felt the weight of each gaze upon her, an amalgamation of skepticism and curiosity showing on their faces. With every word, she reached within herself, drawing upon her training and her personal experiences, weaving them into a narrative that was uniquely hers. The initial outlines she had prepared were swiftly cast aside, replaced with the flowing honesty of her thoughts. Thank you all for being here today. I understand that discussing our biases can be uncomfortable, but it's crucial for us to unravel how these biases deeply influence the healthcare services we provide. Anna started tentatively, but found strength in her dedication to the subject. The room remained silent. The palpable tension created a whirlwind of emotions in her chest, but as minutes passed, she noticed receptive nods and glimmers of understanding. She ventured deeper, recalling her journey through challenges and misconceptions. As she shared her own biases, she felt an unexpected connection grow. A bridge between their experiences and hers began to manifest. Somewhere along the way, I realized that biases aren't only held by others, she continued, gauging the reactions around the table. I have had to confront my own biases in my professional journey, and it was this reckoning that has transformed me. The participants listened intently, and Anna sensed their guarded walls begin to soften. With greater confidence, she facilitated the discussion, inviting them to share their own experiences. "What biases have you discovered in your practice?" she asked, her voice unwavering now. One by one, they began to open up, revealing deeply personal stories that tied back to shared struggles. Each revelation, each admission, illuminated a path of collective introspection. Anna was not just leading a focus group, she was engendering a powerful dialogue. As the discussions unfolded, Anna experienced a profound shift within herself. The earlier doubts that had threatened her resolve began to dissolve into something cleaner, clearer, more empowering. She took pride in steering this conversation with authenticity and empathy, realizing that her role was not to lead from a height, but to walk alongside her peers in discovery. Yet, amid her triumph, a gnawing sensation crept back. What if this connection was fleeting? What if they departed unchanged, as though their moment of vulnerability was merely an echo in the room? The possibility haunted her, self-doubt brushing insistently against her newfound confidence. She kept the momentum alive, encouraging participants to express what they had not yet said or realized. A courageous nurse finally spoke up, her voice shaking with emotion. "I never saw it this way," she confessed. "I've unconsciously held biases against certain patient groups, thinking they wouldn't adhere to care plans." The room hummed with shared recognition. Anna thrived in this supportive space, validating their honesty and facilitating deeper conversations that spiraled into strategies for improvement and accountability. A wave of energy surged through the group, igniting the potential for change. Yet, just as the atmosphere reached a peak of shared vulnerability, an unexpected knock resounded at the door, pulling them from their intimate space back into the reality of their profession. The door swung open, revealing Jordan, a senior executive Anna had admired but never directly confronted. "I hope I'm not interrupting," he said, then glanced around the room, eyes narrowing as he took note of the stirring discussions. His presence electrified the air. "I'd like to hear what's going on here." The group's dynamic shifted. They were suddenly reminded of the seriousness that loomed outside their revelations. Anna's heart raced. Would the authenticity they had just unearthed survive scrutiny? In that suspended moment, she felt the weight of her ambitions collide with the expectations of leadership. The stakes had risen. Would she embrace the scrutiny or falter under its intensity? The clock was ticking again, but now it marked not only the passage of time, but the unfolding of a pivotal moment in her career. Would she stand her ground or allow external pressure to extinguish the spark she had ignited? Anna took a deep breath, steadying herself against the sudden tension that enveloped the room. Her heart raced at the unexpected presence of Jordan, but a spark of courage ignited within her. This was the moment she had prepared for, both as a nurse deeply committed to her patients and as a woman who had finally found her voice. "Jordan," she began, projecting her voice with newfound authority, "we're discussing the systemic biases that affect our patient care. It's crucial for us as healthcare providers to confront these issues if we truly want to improve outcomes." The words flowed from her, each syllable carrying the weight of her resolve. Jordan's eyebrows raised in surprise, but he took a seat, signaling a willingness to listen. The participants, emboldened by Anna's stance, began sharing their own insights, opening up narratives laden with personal experiences that dissected their unconscious biases. Anna effortlessly navigated the conversations, weaving her voice into the fabric of their collective introspection. Each story shared built an invisible chain connecting them all, and the anxious atmosphere began to morph into one of camaraderie. She could see the subtle shifts in her colleagues' expressions. The flicker of understanding was there, growing brighter. As the discourse unfolded, she realized this was not just a focus group. It was a revolution brewing in the heart of their healthcare philosophy. They were unearthing truths together, truths she had once feared would be dismissed. This was her achievement, the genuine connection fostered among seasoned practitioners as they stepped together into the light of awareness. Just like I realized my own biases, we all have the power to initiate change, Anna encouraged, her voice infused with determination. What will we do from here? How can we work on becoming advocates, both inside and outside of these walls? The room hummed with quiet contemplation. Colleagues exchanged glances, a palpable energy of possibility swirling around them. One nurse boldly suggested implementing regular training on bias recognition in their system. Another expressed enthusiasm for developing community outreach programs that emphasized equitable care for underserved populations. Ideas cascaded around the table, each one brighter and bolder than the last. In that pivotal moment, Anna felt the final touch of transformation solidify in her being. She was no longer simply a nurse grappling with fear and uncertainty. She was a facilitator of change, a voice for the marginalized, and a shaper of future care practices. This was no longer just about addressing disparities, it was about creating a foundation for generations to come. As the meeting drew to a close, Jordan stood and addressed the group, affirming the value in their discussions and highlighting Anna's remarkable initiative. "Your courage in facing these issues head-on is commendable," he remarked, casting a glance her way. "We need this kind of dialogue if we're to take the first steps toward authentic change." Anna felt a swell of pride at the recognition. The validation of her efforts resonated deeply. It was a testament to her journey, one that she could finally relish without hesitation. She had discovered her voice, forged alliances, and ignited a movement within her own professional community. In the days that followed, Anna worked alongside her colleagues, developing training modules and outreach programs. She leveraged her platform to create a ripple effect across healthcare networks, sharing her journey and the group's newfound dedication toward systemic change. The momentum was palpable. Pressure had transformed into purpose, driving her to conquer the challenge of facing biases head-on. Finally, during a presentation at a professional gathering, Anna shared the collective success with the larger community. She spoke not just of biases and disparities, but of hope. Change is possible when courage and collaboration drive our actions, she concluded, her voice steady, a sense of accomplishment blossoming within her. The room erupted into applause, a salutation to her transformation. Anna's heart swelled. She had achieved her dreams and more. No longer constrained by fear or doubt, she stood as a beacon of empowerment, confident, competent, and truly fulfilled. As she walked off the stage that day, she recognized the profound scope of her journey. She had become the embodiment of the change she wished to see, not just in herself, but in the world around her. Armed with recognition and purpose, Anna understood that reaching this milestone marked only the beginning of new adventures, as endless possibilities awaited her now that she had embraced the call to action. The time was now for each of us to confront our biases, advocate for the voiceless, and transform ourselves in the process. Don't wait even one more second. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. You need to share this journey of transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and comment your reactions and theories about Anna's journey. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand how vital it is to support the channel through these actions.